I'm one of the biggest defenders of the NHS. I think it's one of the greatest ideas anybody's ever had, and I'll defend it to the hilt. It's very, very, very good at looking after a whole variety of disorders, but increasingly, because of the success of healthcare, there are many more people being found to have rare disorders.
Not everyone wants to do what I did. And once it's out there, you can't take it back. And many people want to keep their diagnosis private. They don't want people at work to know. They don't want family to know.
What's been interesting is how much I've learned from, not from the medical community, but from other people with the condition. It's a very complex condition, Parkinson's, with a whole array of symptoms. In fact, I chaired a conference session last year with two neurologists, one a sort of radical American neurologist who said Parkinson's doesn't exist, or it's not a useful definition because it's so many completely different diseases.
So it's important that patients understand their disorders as well as they possibly can, but also appreciate that there are gaps in our knowledge and that disagreement between specialists does not mean an absence of truth. Is that making some sort of sense? And that's why we need to signpost people to reasonable opinions. The best research is done when it's really interdisciplinary anyway. I certainly am very happy for my clinical data to be shared and used in an anonymized way, because it's when you aggregate data from thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people that you can see patterns that aren't available when you're looking at small numbers.
I have three, healthcare providers. I've got my GP, I've got my Parkinson's doctor, I've got my Moorfields eye doctors, and there's still a mountain of paper, particularly at one of the hospitals I go to. Doctor arrives with a great big folder flicking back and forth, and that data is not shared with or not shared effectively with my GP, and certainly not shared with my Parkinson's doctor. And there may be links between the two.
The Chinese, some extraordinarily brave Chinese scientists and doctors were looking after these patients. They sequenced the genome and made it available, which was a game changer. Because of that, because that genome became available like that, researchers around the world that were making new vaccines, for example, these new mRNA vaccines, which are extraordinary because you can change them very, very quickly, the whole infrastructure was developed to make RNA vaccines against another virus. But because the sequence of SARS-CoV-2 became available at the beginning of January, many scientists around the world were able to pivot towards this new threat. And that's the only reason why by the spring people were able to do preclinical studies. By the summer, clinical studies. The data were being fed to the regulatory authorities such that we had actually licensed medications by the end of the year. Social media gives everybody a soapbox. So people who know what they are talking about, experts, can stand up on this soapbox and tell people about it. And patients who've got their lived experience of a disease can also talk about it, and that's also incredibly valuable. But also people who have no idea what they're talking about can do the same thing. And it is very difficult when you're dealing with small little tweets or somebody who just amassed a load of followers, and on social media, often followers can be mistaken for gravitas, and so people who've no idea what they're talking about can spout, and people will believe them. Worse than that, and more sinister, is some people have a different agenda, and they are trying to sell you something. They're trying to sell you their book. They're trying to sell you their version of snake oil, their whatever. It's often a diet, for example, and they can then be quite active on social media, and it's difficult sometimes to counteract them.